So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you in this day to celebrate our movement of judges associating worldwide to create associations in order to improve the way the justice system is granting children's rights. The International Association of Youth and Family Judges and Magistrates is going to celebrate its first centennial in 4 years time. But we believe that the 20s, 100 years ago, were a very important decade when many countries have created their own specialized courts, they have created also their own specialized laws, and judges all over the world began to join their efforts in order to have international documents on children's rights. In 1924, we have had the first international document on children's rights, the Geneva Declaration. So we decided to begin this year a journey speaking about the importance of judges being together in order to change the situation of children's rights, telling our history, and also inviting national associations from all over the world also to share their experience. With this initiative, we are also intending to stimulate judges all over the world to do the same path, creating their own associations in the countries where they still don't have their own associations, and join this international effort in our international association. So in 2028, we are going to celebrate our first centennial, but today we have the honor to have with us our current presidents, but also our immediate and past presidents to share their experience and to enlighten our way about how the associative movements of judges worldwide is important. So I'm very pleased to have with us Judge Dave Stuck, who is a retired judge in Ohio, in the United States, and current president of our association. We have also Avril Calder, who is a retired magistrate in London, in the United Kingdom, and past president of our international association, and Marta Pascual, a judge in Argentina. She's a professor at the University in Argentina for graduation and post-graduation studies on children's rights. The three of them very important judges worldwide who are opening doors and developing very important strategies in order to have a better justice system to grant children's rights. So it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for accepting our invitation to participate in this webinar. So we are going to begin this webinar asking you about your personal experience as a judge or a magistrate, about the importance of youth judges associative movement in your country. Before of reaching this international arena, what was the importance of these associative movements in England, Argentina, and the United States, and what you consider as the major contribution of these movements to children's rights in your country? So we are going to begin in chronological order according to our history in our association. So I'll give the floor to our dear Avril Calder.
Well, thank you very much, Eduardo. And thank you to you also and the Executive Association for instituting these webinars to record my memories and our collective memories. As presidents of the association, I think it's a very valuable thing to do. But in speaking about the United Kingdom, it is necessary for me to set out that there are 4 countries in the UK and 3 jurisdictions. England and Wales is one, Northern Ireland is another, and Scotland is the third. And across those 3 jurisdictions, those 4 countries, there was the British Juvenile and Family Courts Association, which had members from all of them. And I was a member in the late 70s and went on to be president. Now, the interesting thing is that the British Juvenile and Family Court Society was affiliated to and arose out of connections to the International Association. Indeed, AIMJF's 1974 World Congress was held in Oxford, and the title was Youth Justice in a Changing World, which I think applies equally to today. So the collegiality of both associations, national and international, promoted contact with others doing the same job. And the dialogue, interchange of ideas and practice that collegiality brings is a catalyst for change. International movements by judges towards specialized tribunals, as Eduardo has just said, date back to the turn of the 20th century, and AIMJF has its own history in shaping their development. My bench began in 1908. In the aftermath of the First World War, Eglantine Jebb, a British social reformer, founded in 1919 the Save the Children Fund to relieve the effects of famine in Austria, Hungary, and Germany, followed by Greece, Macedonia, and Russia, continually raising money to feed children who'd suffered as a result of war. The success of the fund led her to attempt to set up an international movement for children. So in 1920, the International Save the Children Union was founded in Geneva, with the British Save the Children Fund and the Swedish Röda Barnen as leading members. In 1923, in Geneva, she drafted a document which asserted the rights of the children and the duty of the international community to put children's rights at the forefront of planning. The Declaration of the Rights of the Child, or the Declaration of Geneva, which Eduardo has just mentioned, as it came to be known, was adopted in 1924 by the League of Nations. I think that the drafters of our Children and Young Persons Act of 1933, in section 24, put down that a court must have regard for the welfare of a child appearing before it. I'm sure that Eglantine Jebb and all those others, not just her, but everyone previously mentioned, and the fact that AIMJF had its first World Congress in Belgium in 1930 must have had an impact. And what was the title of the first World Congress? What was on the agenda? Children Before the Courts, and national and international perspectives on youth courts versus youth protection. But for me, Sion and the Institute of the Rights of the Child was very influential, emphasizing as it did the 1989 Convention on the Rights of the Child and meeting others at IDE. I attended conferences many times and learned to use articles relating, for example, to detention as a last resort, hearing the child, the right to be safe from violence. All of those things galvanized my approach, and I applied this in the youth court and following the 1989 Children Act, the family court. And I'm sure I hope that imparted itself to all present, all the participants, all the professionals, and of course we were all looking at the welfare and the best interests of children. So my international experiences and connections also led me to serving for several years on a subcommittee of the Youth Justice Board for England and Wales. That body oversees the youth justice system in the 2 countries, and my ability to bring an international perspective and relate what was happening in other countries was my reason for being there.
Thank you very much, Avril. Very interesting, because you bring the British experience in a more international approach, relating it to what was happening in Europe at that time. Thank you very much. What about you, Marta? What can you tell us about your experience in Argentina and how the youth judges associative movement has been developed in your country?
Yeah, thank you, Eduardo, and the rest of my colleagues, presidents, ex or present President Dave. When I started thinking about this webinar, I started thinking what mean that this association for the judges or for magistrate, and I think that the associations, the nationals one or the internationals, are like a lighthouse that we can go for light to clarify some question, or we have to take a decision, and we can go there looking for how our colleagues decide similar cases, jurisprudence, research on these topics. And this is also a place where we can connect colleagues, attend seminars, and especially look where is the world going in law or in matters dealing with children, that I think we are now facing very difficult situations all over the world, no? And for example, in my country now, we are in the age of a storm, attending the age of penalty. In our country is in 16. And as we were talking before start this meeting between our colleagues, we have just came back from Mexico, where we have our study tour. It was very interesting, very rich for all of us to go to be in different courts where they were celebrating different cases. One was about violence, and the other was with a child. No, not a child, it was a teenager. It was over 16 that had been involved in a serious case. And what for Argentina, what I try to compare is that in Mexico, for example, they have the age of penalty 12. Meanwhile, we have in 16. But in the other, so I say, well, I think we have to go to that situation. I think it's a little bit early to incarcerate a boy or a girl of 12, but they can't incarcerate in 12. They can only take a measure. Meanwhile, in Argentina, we are very high, 16, but we are able to read sentences where this teenager or youth that committed a crime are incarcerated for more than 10 years. So it's like a contradiction that we have to go and to be part of the association of these discussions to know where we can't find light in the convention, but we can find light or examples in different associations or in different countries, which is the ideal age to put the age where we can send those children or teenagers that committed crime to be put in jails or to be incarcerated. For example, other topic now in our country is surrogacy. So it's the associations, the international ones, or the colleagues had a great experience in that topic. So I think, I repeat it, I think that these associations, the colleagues or people dealing with these cases, are a lighthouse where we can face to solve our cases. And the other idea that I would like to point is that the associations, the national one or the internationals, we have made some declarations in difficult cases or I don't know how to say, very serious difficulties that children have in different or special countries, that we can ask for help or for advice when we are attacked by media or by other people because they don't like the way we solve a case. Because they think that, for example, children should have been taken into jail, or they don't like the way we decided. So I think the associations, for example, in Argentina, they will provide you, in the case you are denounced, they are going to advise or to help you when you are attacked or when you are, for example, denounced in our country to our, it's like a trial that they are going to see how we solve it. So I think this is a good way when we have a problem, personal or in order to the way we decide our work, that can help and can advise and can support us as we are dealing with difficult cases. And I repeat it, and the media and some people don't agree with our decision. These are the two topics that I wanted to point in order to my experience in more than 20 years being a judge. Now I was a juez de menores, minor judge. I have both cases, both branches, I should say, is children's rights and also the ones that committed crime, but now I only a penal judge for children under 18. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Marta. I am David Stucki, as Eduardo introduced me, and it's a pleasure to be here today among all of my mentors, I'll confess. Not only Eduardo, who is our editor of the Chronicle and sort of everything else that needs to be done. Eduardo helps the association immensely and our leadership as well, but also my predecessors and mentors, Marta, who you just heard from, Marta Pascual, as well as Avril. They've been a real source of strength to me personally as I took over as president, but more importantly, they've been a steadying force in our organization, I believe for good, for many, many years. And we hope that to continue, that for many more years, you ladies, former presidents, continue to be involved in providing leadership. As Eduardo mentioned, I'm from the States, specifically the state of Ohio. As you may know, we have 50 states plus territories and more than 50 types of courts. We do not have one national example for every state or every community, even within states, in terms of how the juvenile court should look. But one thing that the United States, I believe, has done as a very young country in 1899, the movement to create a separate juvenile court began and was accomplished over 100 years from now. That seems like a simple accomplishment, but at the time, juveniles were looked at just as an adult. And so there was no regard for the differences there may be between a 14-year-old youth who's committed an offense, for example, and a 27-year-old youth or adult, if you want to. And that is completely wrong. We know that now from scientific studies in terms of even brain development. We continue to learn about what exactly is this animal who is a teenager and how that changes, hopefully for the better, but changes nonetheless as they come into adulthood. And so we say way back in our history, it's maybe not that long in your country's history, but in our history, in the 1800s, 1899, the first juvenile court was born and designed and began operations actually in Chicago. Since that time, the juvenile court movement has spread. It's not uniform. Courts are different in major cities from very rural or small courts, but nonetheless, the focus on the participant, the youth involved, is the focus. And we recognize now that youth react differently. They need different examples. They need treated differently when they come to court. And so I believe that that is being done on a pretty good basis. The problem with the lack of coordination between states is your fate as a juvenile who may be appearing in court in need of protection or in violation of law may treat you differently than the court 2 miles away in a different state. And so, again, way back in the scope of our history, way back in 1937, there was founded the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges, actually in Reno, Nevada, where they continue to serve and to try and coordinate and distribute best practices on handling with juveniles within and without our neighboring states. I had the opportunity to serve through the leadership chairs of that organization, and my involvement actually began when I became a judge. In our system, I was very young when I was appointed as a judge, and I was following sort of a local legend who had been at the court for 25 plus years, which is very unusual in our system. And I went to him being young, and I said, Judge, I'm young. I have a lot to learn. I want to be a good judge. I don't want to waste opportunities to make a difference for families or children. What should I do? He reached in his desk behind him and pulled out a piece of paper, and he says, you will become a member of the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges. And that was quite simple. And yet, nearly 40 years ago, I guess 36 years ago, that was good advice. And it's not because of the National Council itself, but it's because of this feeling and this good practice, this best practice that you should associate with your colleagues who are doing the same or similar work. And you'll find many times the things that are intuitive about how we should do things are incorrect, and the results are different from what you think. And so to develop a program, it must be researched, and it must be followed, and it must be verified that in fact you're doing the right thing, because it's a little bit like the doctor's Hippocratic oath, the practice that we engage in, and that is the first thing, do no harm. And so that's been my effort as a judge these 30 plus years. And the reason why I brought up the joining the National Council is because I had never thought about that. I was very young. I thought I was smart. I really didn't need the help of my colleagues. And I'm only now realizing how foolish at times I was, and the importance it is to have senior mentors in this business who have done that. And things change, and we have to adapt. And the National Council is one vehicle in the United States that helps us stay up to date. Each state has a training council called different things, but usually run by the Supreme Court in that state that requires, of course, education, but also provides innovative programs. So that's what brought me to this work. That's what brought me to the love of associating with colleagues, whether your system is the same or different. And when I became involved in this organization, I thought the focus was going to be on our differences and how our procedures and how we become a judge and the whole system, how they're different. And they are different. But the more amazing thing to me than our differences, which is what I was looking for, is that many of the things we do are for the same result, and that is for the best interest of the children. And the principles about what makes a program or a caring judge or a system, the hallmarks of what makes them effective, is that our focus? Are we here to make the best possible decision for this children and this family? I'll close this part with one statement. One day we were in a training, and I happened to be in a meeting with the Chief Justice of our state, which is a very high and serious position to be in. And I stood up and said, I am serving in the most important courts in our community. In other words, the juvenile and family courts. Now, I'm not sure that was a very career-wise thing to say in the presence of the Chief Justice, but I went on to say it's because if you ask anyone, anywhere, what are the things that you hold dear? They're going to say their family, their children, and their community. And I believe as a juvenile and family court judge, that's what our focus is. It's what it should continue to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Marta. It's very interesting, this fourth part, because we see how Europe, North America, and also Latin America have had parallel movements, and one interacts with the other. I remember Marta was saying about our study tour in Mexico, and they made this parallel of what was happening in the United States and in Latin America. And we have had Argentina was pioneer in having its specialized law in 1919, and then we had many countries until 1929 having its own specialized courts and specialized laws in our continent, as well as I am a judge in Brazil. So we see these three continents, or three geographical areas developing its own approach. And you told us about your personal engagement with as a judge or magistrate in your national organizations. I would like to know now, how do you get engaged with international associations? What were the issues that make you believe that the International Association could bring new perspectives to your work and to your country? Avril, could you begin, please?
Yes, thank you. Well, as I said a few minutes ago, I joined the British Juvenile and Family Court Society in about 1979. And the leaders then included Claire Spurgeon, who was the first woman president of AIMJF, and who incidentally had our enameled silver badge of office made for the association in Chipping Campden, a world famous arts and crafts centre. So there was Claire Spurgeon and another lady called Dilly Gask. And both of them, I mean, Claire Spurgeon was certainly quite elderly then, but I did see her once or twice. But the very active younger member was called Dilly Gask. And Dilly would go to meetings of the International Association and come back and tell us about them. So she introduced me to figures such as Josephine Jungertas and Horst Schuler-Spring-Gorham. And they came to speak in London at a BGFCS conference, the first one I helped to organise in the early 1980s. And I well remember both those ladies and how influential they were in working as specialists in the youth courts. And later, as president of that association, I was able to invite AIMJF members from other countries to speak at conferences that I organised. Jean Zamatin springs to mind, so I've known Jean a long time. And another one I organised had representatives from 17 European countries. Would that have been possible without AIMJF? Would I have known where to start getting representatives? And what I wanted was the scientific comparison, which is what Eduardo is busy with these days, on how they approached drugs and the use of drugs, the abuse of drugs, and what the courts were doing with young people who were found dealing, using, etc. So I thought to myself, well, AIMJF presents a key opportunity for taking forward these relationships that you then build with 17 countries, members from 17 countries and more. And without AIMJF, you wouldn't get these ideas about interactive conferences off the drawing board. You just wouldn't have the contacts. You wouldn't know where to start. It would be an uphill job. And what are the issues at stake? Well, it's impossible to overestimate the value of meeting those from other countries. And as Dave knows, I have been to the NCJFCJ, the National Council for Judges in the States, in Reno, and I trained there for a week. Again, that would not have been possible without the International Association. And I think putting into practice the tenets of the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the European Convention on the Rights of the Child was very, very important for me in both types of court in which I sat. And just to take one example of that, what about proportionality? How do others see this? What is the benchmark for proportionality? And I'm reminded of training I gave to judges in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. And I had drawn up a case in which its various elements were subject to children's rights interpretations. The judges' decisions were measured and gave the same weighting as I would have done. Possibly without the children's rights lens, the outcome would have been the same. But I don't know that it would. So, in my view, the lens is an essential tool for weighing up facts of a case and making your way through it to deal fairly and proportionately. Is that, or do you want me to do the next bit? What is the importance of the International Association in your perspective, considering your, no, you don't. That's my bit on what were the issues at stake. I think the issues at stake for me were the convention and how to put that into action. And of course, we then got the European Convention on Human Rights and how to deal with that. And of course, the European Court on Human Rights had very many judgments which you could access, and you could talk about those with other people in the association.
Great, Avril. What about you, Marta?
Well, I don't remember where was the first time that I met my colleagues of the International Association. And I think that the first time that I went to a meeting was in 1986 or something near that year in Rio, where we have an interesting meeting. And my interest was to see other points of view and how the best interest of a child was seen by other members of we have new experiences or new ways of trying to get good ways of dealing with children. I remember that I listened to other colleagues that talk about the necessity of asking other disciplines to get interdisciplinary teams to solve questions. Now, I think that, for example, the neuroscience to give us light of how or what is happening or what happens to some kid or teenager that comes to our court. So I think Avril gave us a good history of our association and different meetings, but I think that each time, and I talk about Mexico, open our minds to new ways of dealing or gathering new experiences. So for me, that's very important to have light, as I said before, about how to deal cases, trying to give a good interpretation of the best interest of a child. And in my case, I'm worried about many colleagues that think that incarcerating teenagers is the best way, because all South America are having many are suffering a lack of security, and the media or the yellow media points to juvenile. So I think that we have to work hard and also I agree with Dave said before, that we are dealing with the best or the most important points that we have in our society or community, children, family. So we have to be prepared and to search different interdisciplinary areas or things to make real solutions or solve cases in the best interest of the child. Because what I see now in my country, that saying or pointed or in the best interest of the child, they are incarcerated children. That is my concern. So that's, I think, is a very important. And when you talk to another colleague and you say, for example, no, you are going to send 15 years or 10 years to a child. Look, in Mexico or in States or other countries, they have a different way of dealing with this child. And I think that they are in a good way. That's my opinion.
So I came to be aware of the work of this organization during April's mandate. And as I look back, I was involved in leadership in different roles in our state. I was president of our association here in Ohio. And then in 2013, 2014, I was president of the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges. And in that capacity, I had the opportunity to travel to some trainings and seminars around the world. The National Council has an international committee that has some involvement. And so for me, it was somewhat natural. My parents were immigrants to the states, and I enjoy dual citizenship as a Swiss citizen, but also born here in the United States. And so I'm a United States citizen. So I had a feeling, a longing, I guess, to be involved in an international capacity. And thankfully, our president, Avril, at the time, encouraged me in that. And I think we met in a meeting again during her mandate, and she encouraged me to be involved in that, and that the commitment to this organization would be beneficial to yourself, but certainly to the children and families. And so she was right. And thank you for that, President Calder, for your encouragement of me. And then I did have the opportunity to get in the executive council and leadership with our president, Marta, and learned much as well from her before I was sworn in as president 2 years ago. So I thank, again, both you ladies. And thank you, not just in my case, because I know that you showed interest in me and encouraged me along, but you continued to do that. On our most recent study tour last week, I guess, we had actually 3 at the time, and then 2, and then 1 became ill on the eve of traveling. So, but one of our relatively new judges, I think she's been a judge for 2 years in the States, went along on our study tour. And it was really fun to watch through her eyes, the fascination, really, of being able to sit and watch a trial, being able to interact with the judicial leadership, being able to visit a youth prison. All these things that maybe we've done a dozen or more times in our career. But to watch it, again, the whole experience through the new eyes of a younger judge who had the opportunity to come along on such a trip. I think, I don't know how you put a price tag on that. I think imparting that experience to the next generation of judges is without price. And so all of which has been led by this organization. And one of the things I really enjoy to see younger judges come into the system and want to make a difference positively.
Thank you, Dave and Marta. I would like to add to the 2 next questions together. Maybe I think it's they have some connection, but I would like to understand what was the importance of the International Association in your mandates. What were your achievements and the issues that you as president wanted to implement or to bring into light in your mandate? And I think it's important also when you discuss about that to think about the different geographical areas that you come from. So Avril comes from Europe, or Marta from Latin America, and Dave from North America, with very different traditions and legal approach. What is the benefits for a judge to know and share different experiences as a reason for belonging to our association, in your opinion? So please, Avril.
So the importance of the International Association, in my perspective, as a former president. Well, as president, I thought it was important to reach and build relationships with as many members in as many countries as possible to enable the dialogue that I mentioned earlier about the convention, the European Convention on Human Rights and the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, and to talk about best practice. For example, the Polish Association invited me to speak, I think long before I was president, actually in 2007. And very quickly, I realized how keen they were to hear about experiences elsewhere, especially when they had just entered into the European Union. And since that time, we have, I think, always had a Polish representative on our executive committee. So building relationships was, I thought, one of my aims. The Chronicle, as everyone knows, I was editor-in-chief for 12 years, and that enabled me to bring many voices reflecting scientific research, which is one of the things in our statutes, and practice in youth and family courts, not only to members, but eventually through our website to countries where membership was too expensive for them. And I do remember a young man coming up to me at a conference in Geneva, perhaps the one where I met Dave for the first time. And he said how much he was learning from reading the Chronicles online. And Dave will remember that conference. It had, I don't know, 500, 600 people. So he found me in all of this, and he just wanted to tell me that thing. And I tell you, that was a boost. And it did bring him from the web into our sphere of influence, if you like. And I was very pleased with that. And I think the Chronicle also helped to press for specialization of judges, because in many parts of the world there is not specialization of judges and magistrates, and that the courts themselves should be devoted only to children. And as you know, I also reached out to non-governmental organizations. It's not always easy for busy people like judges and magistrates to keep abreast of NGOs advocating for a better deal or better experience for children and their arguments. The NGOs and the others, such as the Commonwealth Judges and Magistrates Association, welcomed our interest in them, and I was very pleased to share many platforms with them. Indeed, the Commonwealth Magistrates Judges Association and our and IAYFGM shared their publications with each other. So the reach, especially for the Chronicle, was enormous, because the Commonwealth is enormous. The importance of working across different interest groups was brought home by the extraordinarily successful 2018 World Congress at UNESCO in Paris, with 900 delegates from 98 countries. They were very pleased, for example, because when I went to speak to them about it, they said, how many people? I said 500. They said, how many countries? I said 50. And it turned out to be twice the numbers. And it was truly inclusive. It was possible only through forming a consortium with Ted Azom and Penal Reform International and other leading NGOs. We could not have done it on our own. We simply don't have the finance. And I am forever grateful to them for supporting us. But that came about from building relationships over many years. And another achievement, I think, was the introduction of the association's guidelines, guidelines on children in contact with the justice system, first mooted by my predecessor, Joseph Moyson, and that's a very good example of continuity between presidents. I was very proud that the guidelines were developed entirely within the association's membership. This was possible through a team of 8 highly expert members from 8 different countries, ably led by Professor Jean Trepanier of Canada. We were able to draw on our own reserves to do that. And at the conference, we were able, with the help of those in partnership, to issue free copies to all 900 delegates to that Congress. I was very pleased to present the guidelines in Geneva to the Committee on the Convention, and their members welcomed the use of them by all practitioners. And the guidelines are a first, I believe, by an organization such as ours, rather than by, for example, a large body such as the Council of Europe. The guidelines are available still in English, French, Spanish, and Arabic, and they are in demand. I had a request for them about 2 months ago. It's important to keep this valuable initiative up to date, I would think, in the future, right now, because they're about 8 years old now. They need to be kept up to date in the interests of children. So the next part of it was the geographical areas. And I think, well, what is the value of debating with people? What is the value of exchanging views? It is, of course, that we learn so much. And I always want to learn, to know more, so that I can be a better performer in my courts. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, where we can point to how others can achieve more with a different approach. And as Dave knows, I knew the Californian judge Len Edwards very well. He was a member of our association, and he spoke at our World Congress in Melbourne in 2002. He had introduced drug and alcohol courts in his jurisdiction with startlingly good outcomes. And we introduced that here. We had to work because, as David said, the systems are different. So tweaking, I think, might be underestimating the work that had to be done. But we did, in fact, set up successful drug and alcohol courts in England and Wales, in the family courts, and they continue to this day. So what is the benefit for a judge to know and share these different experiences? Learning, 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 learning is what I've just said. And the drug and alcohol courts are a perfect example. They enable you to argue for change, just as we did for the drug and alcohol courts. Another strong push has been for diversion and restorative justice, both of which are in evidence in courts in the UK. Similarly, the numbers of children detained has been decreasing for several years. And the latest statistics show on average 440 children being in detention at any one time, whereas 10 years ago, that number was more like 3,000. So I think that a lot has been done about Section 37B of the Convention in raising people's awareness that you have to get children out of detention. As Marta was just saying, it's not the answer, locking up children. There are times when you have to do it, but there are other times when you can find a more useful, better way. And as we know, the restorative justices, which were pioneered, you could say, in New Zealand, where the principal youth court judges over time have all been members of our association. And indeed, Andrew Beecroft served in the panel that put the guidelines together. And I was able to visit him in his chambers in 2002, following the World Congress in Melbourne in Australia, and also to sit with the current principal youth court judge in New Zealand, John Walker. And they were keen to share their experiences, and you learn as you go along. I'm going to stop there because I think the next question is the mutual interaction between national and international association.
Eduardo, I would like to add to Avril's overview that one the followers of the restorative justice used to say, that we have to adapt or to change our way of dealing with of so.
Marta, we can hear you very well. Maybe if you can come closer.
Okay, now
Better.
is it okay? Shall I repeat it again or no? Well,
Yes.
I follow.
Yes, please.
Following with Avril's idea and so good overview about the association and the importance of being part of it, I would like to add that and in my case, as a follower of the restorative justice, that all judges and magistrates, we have to adapt or to change our lens in the way to face the cases with kids or adolescents. And thanks to the connectivity and the new ways of being interacting, we are thinking in a new World Congress, and the last one, because of the pandemic, in a hybrid way. It means that people all over the world in different countries can be attending it, that some of people have problems with that they are so far away and they don't have meaning to get their tickets, that now, because of it, we are able to attend, and thousands of colleagues can be connected and can interact with us. So that's one point I want to talk about it or to say. And the other one, the importance of the researchers, the different research that we have done, and thanks to Eduardo, where people and colleagues from different countries all over the world clarify us or learn us the way they did with that cases. And then we know a lot about that. And also that we see that there are new cases that have to face kids dealing with that, and that we have to work with that and to know about how our colleague that. And I think also these webinars that now perhaps there are a few people attending it, but they state that you can connect by YouTube or other ways, that this is a new way that our experience, our new knowledge or different matters are spread all over the world because of the work of the association and the leaders. So I think that this is a very, very good way of let other colleagues be communicated with many countries, with different continents, that we are the way we are handling now these topics, webinars, research, meeting, study tours. They are so important for us to spread new knowledges and new ways of dealing or facing cases. That's my point of view. Now, Dave.
Well, I think that these two ladies have, excuse me, really covered the waterfront on this issue, so I don't want to repeat anything. But one of the things with the organization, as with any organization involving people, there's a responsibility to continue and with your efforts. And that's difficult at times because people are in the field and they retire and they go away, and we have to constantly be developing new leaders. And I think that's something that as an organization we need to focus on, and that is to work with the leaders we have and the friends and the colleagues we have, but be on the constant alert to build the system. We are going to be celebrating our 100th anniversary here shortly, the way time goes. And I think it heightens all the more the reason for us to understand that we can't do this alone. We have to do work in tandem with colleagues, but we always have to be looking around the next corner to attract new and effective members. So if any of you listening, and you have not joined as a member, this would be a prime opportunity. We're looking for bright, engaged, interested people to carry this good work that you've heard so much about today forward into the next generation. So really, and about repeating what the ladies have said here, Eduardo, I think that's what I have to contribute on this.
Thank you, Avril, Marta, and Dave. This is very interesting, and this is our challenge, how to engage more people in this international movement, as Dave was inviting our audience to engage in our association, but this comes from the base, from the national associations. When people become engaged in their national associations, they can see, as you did and you told us in your personal journey, how your engagement within your national associations open up your minds and spirits to understand what was happening in the international arena. So I think it's very important now when we are celebrating this it's not only our history, but the history of so many countries that are celebrating their centennials of engagement and specialization on children's rights and the justice system. How do you see the mutual interaction now between the international and national associations, and how this could be improved based on the lessons learned in your personal journey as judges and magistrates, and also as current and past presidents of our international association?
I shall go first again.
Please,
Yes. I think the national associations should be pushing upwards to AIMJF the matters that are important to them, while AIMJF should be pushing down timely issues, things that have mattered to them, just as some things like restorative justice came down. The things that are coming down now, I think, are raising the minimum age of criminal responsibility. In the past, it was diversion and restorative justice. Now, I think there's an emphasis on the minimum age of criminal responsibility, which Marta has already referred to earlier. So the national associations should be pushing upwards, and AIMJF should be pushing downwards on issues. And I think regional groupings, such as the European section, set up by my predecessor, Joseph Moyerson, do this. And if there were more of them, I think that would enhance this movement between the different levels of national and international perspectives. And the sort of issues that have been going backwards and forwards, up and down the ladder, have been things like implementing the CRC or the African Charter, pressing for specialization of professionals, all professionals in the court, training of them all. And my personal thing has always been that I think child development should form a part of everyone's training. Judges, I doubt really whether it's there, but other people, maybe if they're youth offending officers, they would get some training in it. But for many of us, there is no training on child development. And I think that lawyers, etc., we should all have, because a child of 10, which is the minimal age of criminal responsibility in England and Wales, is not the same as a child at 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and even after 18 in some jurisdictions, there is a special approach for young people between 18 and 25. Which, by then they are not children. But of course, things like mental health development and understanding of that come into it. So I think more training on child development of the brain and mental trauma. The other thing as training, I think, is we should train more with other professionals. During the introduction of the 89 Children Act in England and Wales, it was very, very helpful to learn how other professionals were approaching the introduction of a completely new, different act, because the youth court work, some of it was separated out and put into the family court. So it was completely different approach. And looking at the best interests of the child, of course, was paramount in that new Children Act, which had public and private law in it. And so having interdisciplinary training, which Marta mentioned earlier, I think it was essential. And I mean, I think being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes to know what they're going through to deliver to you a considered report and how they got there and what the parameters are for them is key to understanding all round. I've mentioned mental health concerns. They are big at present. I mean, 70% of children locked up in the UK have mental health problems. And I think improving the conditions in detention centres, whatever they are, whatever form they take, and wherever they are. So I think they are the mutual interaction is this level of going up and down, and the issues I think that are going up and down and should go up and down are as I've just mentioned.
Oh, well, I'm going to, yes, thank you, Eduardo. I'm going to have a short intervention, and I was thinking about our meeting in Buenos Aires, where we present a theoretical case and the way we solve it in different countries. And we have different procedures, different judges or level of judges that would solve the case. But in all of our, with all those different situations, economical, especially in my country, that we are always in economical crisis, all our colleagues would face the case in a very similar way in spite of the proceedings, because we have a child in front, a teenager with difficulties with the family migrated for the other countries, alcohol, drugs. So it's very similar with the different views all over the world. So I think it's a challenge for us, members of the International Association, to connect with other colleagues, because when they are part of it, or when they come to our study tours, or when they read our research, they notice how important the importance of being part of it. So I think that as members, we have two points to focus, is try to get more people to be engaged in our association, as well as to spread our work, our research, and our meeting to others, so as to engage more people and to get light to our works that is hard to be here. And I'm saying this when we are having a crisis in our national association, because the different points of view, and many very good magistrates that I'm so tired of working, of dealing each day with cases that they don't take the time to be part of it. And always when we go to one of these meetings, or when we attend of these, and we have the time to stop and to listen to other colleagues, we see we can see how important this is for us, and to get the time to listen to it and to refresh our minds, to be able to get more or better decisions. That's what I want to say.
This is very difficult, Eduardo. You put me in third place after these wonderful ladies have covered the whole waterfront in a way better than I can. But I think it's reaffirming that we are coming up with same solutions and answers to the questions. But what I would want to add, I guess, as the current president, yes, the importance of where our involvement can really be productive. I think one of the things that we offer, like no other in an organization, is people who are diverse. And so diversity, I mean, in so many ways, but simply customs based on our history and the countries we're familiar with. Diversity in thought. And so we have people that don't all think alike or think on the big things alike, but have different ways or different approaches to achieve common goals, difference in languages, differences in legal systems, and differences in diversity in resources that our countries could offer to create programs that we believe would be successful. And I think the only way you can really deal with the variety of issues that we deal with is to have people of diverse opinion and to have people who are willing to share what their system has to offer. Those customs and those practices and those systems may not be compatible, but nonetheless, we can discuss them together and many times tailor an approach within our own system based upon something I learned from Marta or a visit to Buenos Aires or based upon something I learned in a study tour. And so I think that's the value of what we can offer as an organization. And we're doing this not just for our own edification. Certainly, I've learned an awful lot since my years of involvement, but it's not just for that. It's to help all of us achieve and overcome any obstacles we have. And I think the only way you can do that is to have diversity in thought, diversity in people, and yet unity in helping each other to reach solutions to these issues. And I think that's one thing that is critically important for AIMJF to keep in mind and to realize that's what our work is at this time, to build upon the good work that's gone on in the past. So that'd be my statement on that.
Thank you very much, Avril, Marta, and Dave. I was thinking about what you were telling, and I participated a short time ago in Leiden in a celebration event of the 10 years of the new optional protocol on individual communications. And one aspect that you haven't mentioned, but I think it's very important in our current situation as judges, is that we are not dealing only with countries as unities, but we have a huge migrant movement, and we are facing and having to deal with children from all over the world in our own jurisdictions. And the committee was pointing out in this decisions that the judges should also consider the way their colleagues were dealing with the cases in their own countries in order to know how, especially in this case of deportation and migrant children, what would be the challenges of these children abroad. So we are very connected in many ways, and I think this is also an important aspect that we should consider to be together internationally and nationally. So I would like to end this conversation today, asking you about how do you see the future of the youth judges associative movements from now on? What could we and the future generations, as Dave very well mentioned, we have to engage new people in this national, international movement. What do you see as challenges and possibilities and perspectives for all of us? Avril, please.
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, it would be good to see us exercising our voice in various ways. The Committee on the Rights of the Child is presently drafting General Comment number 27, which is children's rights to access to justice and effective remedies. And Child Rights Connect, of which we're a member, is seeking input from stakeholders about this. and it covers the terms, the approaches, the actions, all manner of things. And I think we should respond to this and other calls where appropriate. Our voice should be heard. We're actually acting in courts every day. We know that responding to a call for input from the Italian Association when the juvenile courts were under threat was thought to be a helpful intervention, and there are other examples too. So I think we should exercise our voice. Secondly, we have covered this ground, but enhancing our participation as speakers or delegates in activities like conferences, congresses, webinars, etc. It's necessary to be seen and heard if we are to make membership, which Dave was talking about a minute ago, so attractive that judges and others think it's a must. They must join this society. They must be part of this association. And as Dave has just said, there is strength and diversity. And so we want that diversity, and we want to be an attractive organization which offers a lot. And in addition, we have the benefit of relationships with institutions such as the Council of Europe, where we have consultative standing. And I was involved with 2 of their help, which is a help for legal professionals program, which was very illuminating. And the Judicial Training Institute in Belgium, I formed a link with. So all of these things, making our voices heard in activities, with institutions, with NGOs, I think we should be present. And thirdly, it's very good to see that scientific comparisons between practices are now being sought by Eduardo. It is in our statutes and codified for everyone to see and everyone to learn from and use in whatever way they can to promulgate the information, proliferate the information, whatever use they can to make things better for children. And from these developments, it may be possible to introduce, step by step, training of our own. I should like to see that. Online training and the use of webinars could be augmented by the study tours which have been mentioned several times in this webinar, discussion groups and conferences put on by others, as well as our Congress. And in mentioning training, it's worth emphasizing the wealth of experience of our membership. Let us use this expertise, not only for our members, but others. Homegrown training would allow us to promote and extend the use of children's rights as a tool, a lens for coming to decisions. An example of our capabilities in this area is the development of the guidelines by our group of AIMJF experts. I would like to see the thought of training being pushed up. If I can push this up to the AIMJF from below, I hope that that will be heard. So in short, I believe in being active and being seen to be being active and to offering people things that they do not get elsewhere is the key to the future, when I hope too that we will have many more national associations, many more individual members, many more regional sections, and we will keep ourselves busy in that way. Thank you.
Okay, I have very few comments to do. As Avril gave us a very good overview about our challenges. And I think that now, I think that we have some, I should say, problems. One is our colleagues are working hard, or this new world makes all of us be involved in different situations, not only families, but also different points. So I think there is a great challenge to involve our judges in our meetings, in our association, because the work should be better. when we know how to deal with this, or we know about other experiences. And the other one, and think it's important to know about new threats, as I said before. Like in our country now, it was discovered a great net of pornography with children, and also we are having problems with the bullying of the children at school. When we study it, some of them committed suicide because of that, and perhaps the family are so hardworking that they haven't noticed it. So I think to be involved in this association is also helpful for us to know how to deal with these problems and to know about the situations that other colleagues solve. So I want to point that the challenge of our international association is to get more colleagues or more associations to be part of ours, because we have or we can give easy tools or new tools to deal with cases, and our work will be a little better, and we can work in a better way for the best interest of the child. Dave.
Thank you. I think it's been said, but I think maybe simply said is we have to do what has brought us these nearly first 100 years. And that is, we need to have an organization that is open to those who wish to participate, who believe as well that we need to do all we can do as judges and system leaders to protect the best interests of the child. And we need to do that over and over and over and over, because as we've seen from 90 plus years, I guess, of our organization, that's what has brought us to this point. I would not have thought, and you probably either, 5 years ago, that we could have experienced the challenge of the worldwide pandemic. Ironically, we were on a study tour in Cape Town, South Africa, when it really hit there, and we had very hard difficulties getting home. But I'm proud of the organization in our reaction to it. Ultimately, I think Eduardo never sleeps, because he's constantly working on a research project. He's constantly working on networking. He's constantly communicating with partners that he and others have created over the past years. And frankly, I think we need about 10 more Eduardos, or really do give up sleep, Eduardo. But it's an ongoing process that all of us who are committed to this organization have to realize we all have an active part. Some of us have some skills in some areas and absolutely none in others. But to find the best team, and to find the best team to succeed us, and to find the best team for the next 20 years and the next 50 and the next 100 years is what our challenge is. But we can do it. We've demonstrated that. We have a core of leaders, past, present, and future, out there, and we need to choose the right team and continue our passion, after all, over making the process better for the children and the families that we serve. And that's the way I look at it. We've got a lot of work to do, but we have great people in place to do it. And I have every confidence that somewhere down the line, after we're gone, judges will be sitting around and carrying on the same work. Whatever the technology may be, whatever the circumstances may be, we're building on that first 100 years for the next.
Thank you, Avril, Marta, and Dave. We arrived to the end of our webinar today. It's a starting webinar series where we are going to discuss this associative use judges movements worldwide. We began with our international association, but from now on, we want to invite the national associations to bring their own history and to give them space to bring their own issues that they would like to address at an international level, and to improve this communication procedures and process of judges at national levels discussing with other colleagues at the international arena. As you all know, and has already been mentioned in this webinar, we are doing research every year, one topic. This year we are dealing with, we're beginning a new research on child victims and the justice system. Our last research was on child participation in juvenile justice. And we are doing, after this research and an analysis of all national reports, we're doing webinars. So this month, we'll have a webinar with Japan and New Zealand on the right to information in juvenile justice hearings. So we are delighted to announce this webinar, and we ask you to follow our website and check the next webinars, both on this associative movement history and on the specific topics that we are developing in our researches. So I would like to thank very much Avril, Marta, and Dave for being with us today, for sharing your experience, your knowledge, your inspiration. As Avril, I had the honor to succeed Avril at the Chronicle, and as Avril, I believe in learning, learning, and learning. And I think all this engagement is not because I don't sleep, but because I'm very interested in learning from all of you. So I thank you for sharing your knowledge, your time, your experience, and I hope we have the opportunity to be together in the next future. So thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Good day, all. Nice to see you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, done.